Never trust what comes back after it's been lost, especially when it isn't quite the same. What if your beloved pet returned, but it wasn't your pet anymore? Everyone loves a good reunion story, right? A lost dog returning home after months, even years, is something straight out of a feel-good movie. But not every reunion is heartwarming. Sometimes the thing you've been missing comes back, and it brings something dark with it. Tonight, we're diving into the chilling story of a family, their loyal dog, and the unspeakable terror that followed his return. The Callahan family lived in a quiet town surrounded by dense woods. They had a German shepherd named Max, who was more than just a pet. He was their protector, their companion, and, in many ways, the heart of their home. Max was loyal to a fault, always by the family's side, whether it was keeping watch during late-night movies or following 12-year-old Mia to the bus stop each morning. One rainy October evening, Max slipped out of the backyard. The gate had been left ajar, and by the time anyone noticed, he was gone. The family searched for hours, calling his name into the misty night. Days turned into weeks. Flyers were posted, local shelters were visited, but Max had vanished without a trace. The Callahans were devastated. Mia cried herself to sleep for weeks, clutching Max's favorite toy, and even the adults struggled with the gaping void his absence left behind. A year passed. The seasons changed, and while life went on, there was always an unspoken sorrow hanging over the family. Until one late autumn evening, when everything changed. It was Mia who first heard the scratching at the front door. It was faint at first, barely audible over the hum of the television. She ignored it, thinking it was the wind, until the scratching grew louder, more insistent. When she opened the door, her heart skipped a beat. There he was. Maximum. His fur was matted and dirty, his frame thinner than it used to be, but it was undeniably him. Tears streaming down her face, Mia called for her parents. The family gathered around, unable to believe their eyes. Max was back. At first, it was a joyous reunion. They bathed him, fed him, and let him curl up on his old spot by the fireplace. But as the days passed, they began to notice oddities. Max's behavior wasn't quite the same. He no longer wagged his tail when they came home. He refused to eat the food he once loved, staring blankly at his bowl as if he didn't understand what it was for. And then there were the nights. Max would stand by the window, staring out into the darkness for hours on end. Sometimes he'd growl low in his throat, his eyes following something unseen. Other times they'd wake up to find him sitting at the foot of their bed, his head tilted unnaturally, his gaze fixed on them with an intensity that sent chills down their spines. It wasn't just his behavior that was strange. The family began experiencing other phenomena around the house. Lights flickered without explanation, doors creaked open on their own. Mia's toys would move from one room to another, though no one admitted to touching them. One night, Mia woke up to find Max sitting at her bedroom door. His silhouette was illuminated by the hallway light, but his eyes glowed faintly red. She screamed, waking her parents, but when they rushed to her room, Max was gone. The turning point came when Mrs. Callahan decided to take Max to the vet. She wanted to make sure he was healthy after his long absence. The vet's office was eerily quiet as the doctor examined Max. Then the vet froze. "Where did you say you found him?" she asked, her voice shaking. Mrs. Callahan explained how Max had simply returned on his own. The vet's face paled. "This isn't the same dog," she whispered. She pointed to an X-ray of Max's abdomen. Inside there were small, sharp objects, bones, bits of metal, things no normal dog could have ingested and survived. And yet Max seemed perfectly fine. That night the family confronted the thing they had been avoiding. Max wasn't Max. Whatever had come back to them was something else entirely. They decided to keep him in the backyard, locking the gate and chaining him to a sturdy post. But Max's growls turned to unearthly howls that echoed through the neighborhood, sending shivers down the spines of anyone who heard them. In the middle of the night, Mia's screams pierced the silence. Her parents rushed to her room, only to find Max standing over her bed. His fur bristled, his teeth bared, and his eyes glowing an unnatural crimson. He lunged at Mr. Callahan, who barely managed to slam the door shut in time. But the doorframe splintered under Max's weight as he clawed and snarled, something far too powerful for an ordinary dog. The family fled the house that night, leaving everything behind. They called animal control, but when authorities arrived, they found no trace of Max. The backyard chain was snapped, the gate hanging off its hinges. The only sign of him was a series of claw marks etched deep into the hardwood floors of Mia's bedroom. The Callahans never returned to that house. To this day, they don't know what became of Max or the entity that had taken his place. But sometimes, late at night, they swear they hear scratching at their doors, faint and insistent, just like that first night. If you want more chilling tales like this, make sure to subscribe or check out our next video, if you dare.